Kurtis, I think you should start today.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Backyard Tabletop. I almost forgot the name of our podcast for a second, Jake. Welcome to the Backyard Tabletop podcast, where we like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and other things. My name's Kurtis.
Hey, and I'm Jake. That's pretty good, Kurtis. Look at you go. Yeah.
All right.
How's it feel to kind of be in the driver's seat a little bit there?
Oh, let's go. It feels. I like to drive.
You are quite a driver. Kurtis is a pretty good driver.
In another life, I would have been a truck driver.
Really? That's interesting.
No. No.
I was going to be like, I guess you do like to be like, I mean, you recharge when you're by yourself, so.
Maybe an Uber driver, but I think exactly the opposite. It'd be like too many people. I'd be like, just sit in the back and don't say anything. I'll get you there, I promise.
to be fair, it's like most people might actually like that. I hear a lot of people like rather not have their Uber driver talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly like Kurtis said, we like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And typically how we do this is Kurtis and I like to talk about our games that we're in, weekly games, but different games. And we just like to catch each other up on those.
The same game, but different.
But we usually
D&D.
start. It's all D&D, all D&D, because that's what we play in a Pathfinder setting, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Pathfinder has one of the best settings, if not the best. Dip was going to come at me. I could just sense it.
I think mine's the best.
Okay, well, yeah, homebrew. I mean. Because it all comes, yours is the best because it all comes from you. So you're never wrong when it comes to when you're DMing, right? That's what makes, I think, homebrew really nice.
I'm just never wrong in general.
Yeah, well, fair. But before we get into our game, which today we're going to be going into what's been going on with the Trouble Seekers over in Corvosa with plague stuff. But before we get into that, Kurtis, his group is now level 5.
Yes, we just hit. No,
we're
not
level
6
5?
now.
Oh well, this completely changes everything. We got to go back to the drawing board on what we were going to talk about.
But we did just hit level 5 right after where I left off last time. So yes.
Okay, so perfect in our nice.
Time's a weird soup.
Time is a weird soup, and we have done our favorite third level spells when our group, my group, got to level 5. But Kurtis is multi-classing, so when his character hit level 5, he was technically a level 3 wizard, correct?
Correct.
So that means you would have gotten access to second level spells. So we're going to go over our favorite second level spells today.
I still do only have second level spells, to be fair. Even
really?
At level 6. Yeah, because I'm not a fifth level wizard yet.
Oh, because you're 4th level. That's right.
Yep. So it's all good. It all worked out.
It all worked out. Wonderful. That's why I'm here. So going off how we did it last time when we did third level spells, we went back and forth and we would see if we would be the same spells, like, and 2 of them were.
Yeah.
That we differed on the last one. So we'll see. Fun fact, Kurtis, about second level spells that I learned. Second level spells have the most published spells in them. From Wizards of the Coast. I'm sure there's a billion other. Out
of all spell levels, there are more second level spells than any other spell level.
Correct. The next one being first level. Second, there is a total of 85 second level spells. Is that up
to date?
From what I understand, I have because it was Strixhaven was the
Strixhaven was the there was the dragon one.
Dragonlance also
not
came
Dragonlance. No, Strixhaven was the one that had the most. Strixhaven had a ton of spells in it.
It did. But yes, from what I understand, I do use an app that does have
Yep.
them all in it, and it's a great app. But it's a third-party app, so I don't know if I should shout them out. But anyway, a total of 85 spells in second level D&D 5e. Then first level there are 80, so that's the next one. And then third level there is 73. So
Yeah, that's crazy. I really would have expected first level to have the most. That's crazy.
I was kind of expecting that too, but also the first 3, 1, 2, and 3 have the most. Fourth level, I think, has like 60 some. And then it kind of varies from there, going back and forth with each level. But it makes sense because majority of people play from, level 1 to 5.
Yeah.
But without further ado, let's get into it. Would you like to go first, Kurtis, on your...
Should I go first?
I
can go first.
I think you should go first. Now, we're going to preface this with these aren't in any order, and Kurtis and I...
Well, mine specifically are not really in any order because I'm terrible at picking orders. But.
I'm not going to say these are necessarily in my orders, and we're also going with these are our favorite, not the most optimal.
For sure, yeah.
It's kind of like the ones that we tend to pick when we are these levels.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. So, with that said, Kurtis, what is your quote-unquote first one you're going to tell me?
So my first spell, baby's first spell. Okay, sorry. A how-to dummy book for warlocks. No.
for your local sorcerer.
So first one I'm going to talk about is actually a spell that is actually quite new, was introduced in Strixhaven, a spell called Vortex Warp.
Ooh, you want to know something fun?
Huh.
That was one of mine too.
Yeah.
It wasn't my first one I was going to talk about, but it was on my list. That's great.
So this spell is really cool because it fills a niche that was not possible at any point in spells for a really long time.
100%.
There were, especially at this level. At this level, it was like, hey, if I want to teleport somewhere, I've got Misty Step, but I can't bring anyone with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't move anything else. It's just me. I just go somewhere. And it's pretty short. It's like 60 feet, right? Misty Step?
Yeah, something like that. 30 feet, 60 feet, something like that.
And then if you wanted to go far or bring anything else with you or teleport anything else, pretty much the only other option to my knowledge was Dimension Door.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the spell Portal, which is later, but that's much higher level.
Right.
And Dimension Door is like, yeah, you teleport and maybe one other willing creature, but they can't be like bigger than you or anything.
Right.
So even that's really limited.
Mm-hmm.
Vortex Warp is a second level conjuration spell. It's one action to cast, and it says that you magically twist space around another creature you can see within range.
Mm-hmm.
So this spell lets you magically transport another creature, somebody else. You don't get transported. So it's like, hey, I see a friend that's 30 feet away from me. I want them to be 90 feet away from me.
Correct.
And you can do that. Basically, anyone within 90 feet from, like, think of you being like a 90-foot radius around you.
Mm-hmm.
You can transport any creature from any point in that 90-foot radius to another point in that 90-foot radius.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're willing, it just goes through. If they're not willing, which is really cool, you can try and just teleport dudes off cliffs. If they're not willing, they have to make a con save.
I have a fun story about this. The reason why I was going to pick it, because I'm not going to go into details because I can't wait to talk about this when it comes to my turn. But do you remember in the market square where there's a bunch of thorns,
Yes.
wall of thorns? Our wizard had used Vortex Warp to teleport an enemy into the wall of thorns.
That's
doing
so
like
good.
Stupid amount of, if you remember, Nixia took like 73 or something points of damage when she went into it.
Oh, I love it.
It was amazing. So we'll talk about that probably next time. But yes, Vortex Warp is fantastic, and especially in the hands of a creative player, it is very fun.
Well, and the great thing is, like, it can also be very protective. You know, if you've got a guy that's like not supposed to be surrounded and they're surrounded, or even grappled. Actually, this happened in my game, and we might get to it tonight. But somebody was grappled by a large creature, and Cal's sister, who has Vortex Warp, warped them out of the grapple and pulled them down to their side. And I was like, oh, that opens so many doors. That's so cool.
Yes. Yes.
Just being able to throw your allies around the battlefield is just awesome.
Amazing. Getting them out of danger. You could even use it for utility, getting your archer to a higher vantage point.
Just as soon as your lycanthrope barbarian rages and transforms, just teleport them 90 feet above your enemy and let it drop.
Coming down with the Warhammer, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great one. And that was on my list. We might have to do an honorable mention, but that's a great one. My first go-to one was, I usually pick this one because it is a debuff spell that does not require concentration. And the one that this is blindness and deafness is usually one of the first ones I go with. I've had some pretty good scenarios with this one. Like, I recall the one that my wife Sarah ran a one-shot where I played a bard, and at the very end, during the course of the dungeon that we were going through, my character got a sword that wound up later being owned by the big boss of this whole dungeon. And during that fight, because I had attuned to the sword, I got mind controlled. And having a bard, do you recall this? Having a bard with the BBEG of the dungeon was absolutely amazing. I turned on the party and I had a great time. But if I use blindness and deafness to pretty much keep the monk out of the combat, which was really nice. And the fact that it doesn't require concentration, it just goes for a minute and they get a save at the end of each of their turns. It does really good. It is a con save, so it's probably not going to be working on the barbarian or the fighter, but I don't know, use correctly against a wizard.
I mean,
that knocks out any spell that has to see.
It's like, it's another one of those things where it's like, it's kind of similar to just like throwing darkness on a caster, right? Like,
right.
If they can't see what they're trying to cast at, most spells require you to see the target.
Mm-hmm. And because they are blinded, any creature attacking that person gets advantage, and that's really nice. Yep. I have yet to really come across any time where I've used the actual deafness part of this.
Yeah.
And I still am trying to think of a scenario about that. I use blindness a lot, but
there are quite a few creatures actually in the book who have things like tremor sense, or blind sight, things like that require hearing.
Yeah, that's a great. So if they don't, that's a way to probably so if they can't see. That's now I know. Now, thank you, Kurtis. Yeah. Thank you. That was your DM. Yeah. Anyway, that was my first one.
If you're fighting a creature with no eyes, maybe try and deafen
and see what happens.
That's great. Yeah, that's such a good spell. I feel like it's really underrated too.
I agree. I
feel like a lot of people take the, like, if they save, it's just wasted. They kind of take those spells as like they're kind of
save or suck type spells.
Yeah. Exactly. But the nice thing about those spells is when they do hit, it's big.
it works, and then
it can change a whole fight.
Exactly, and I feel like it also scales nicely. It's one of those ones where you can, at higher levels, it targets more creatures. I don't know.
for sure.
I do like it, and they do say con saves is one of the one that's the hardest when it comes to enemies, because Constitution usually is a high stat on a lot of monsters. But
Yeah.
I think when it works, it works.
Yeah.
It works really well. All right, what's your second one?
It's so hard to pick. I think what I'm gonna go with my second one is probably gonna be. Come on, it's probably gonna be. I'm gonna stick with the name thing here, and I'm gonna go with enlarge reduce, Jake.
Ah, now that's a good one. I was going back and forth with this one. That's a good pick. Yeah.
Enlarge reduce is great. It's kind of similar thing. You can kind of pick one thing to happen, and it makes that thing happen. I really like this spell because whereas blindness deafness is a great debuff spell, enlarge reduce is like it's an ideal of like it's a buff or a debuff in one spell, which is like it has great really great utility for like any situation pretty much. It's really cool. So basically when you see a creature, you target them, you can pick to enlarge them or reduce them. If you enlarge a creature, it doubles in size. So if you're medium, you become large. If you're large, you become huge, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Basically, if you enlarge a creature, that creature has advantage on strength checks and saving throws. And because their weapon also grows with them to match their size, all weapons that are also enlarged deal an extra 1d4 damage.
Yes.
Which is
it's a
really
great
cool.
One.
So something real cool to throw on your fighter or your monk.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool. I actually personally feel like it's slightly wasted on barbarians, just because they already have advantage on strength checks and stuff when they're raging, you know? Like that extra D4 is good, but they're also already getting an extra quote-unquote D4 with their rage damage.
Right.
So I would much rather do it to like a paladin or a fighter or a monk.
I think that's a great point.
But you can also reduce a creature, in which case it is halved in all dimensions, which means that it decreases from one size, so from medium to small. Until the spell ends, they have disadvantage. Yeah. Until the spell ends, they have disadvantage on strength checks and saving throws. And because their weapons shrink to match, they deal a d4 less damage. So that could be something that would actually be great to use on an enemy barbarian if they're all up in your grill, because one, they get small and that's just funny. But two,
100%. I've also heard many times of like a Reddit story or YouTube story or whatever of people using it as means to like help to get, because I believe when you shrink, you also like your weight becomes less.
1/8.
So they will use it to like throw their halfling in a backpack so they can like hide better or get away a lot quicker, things like that. I've heard some very random stories of it also being used as like a utility type of thing.
Yeah, because if you use that on a halfling, they're tiny, which is tiny, like
tiny.
like a foot tall, like little.
You can
guy.
easily fit that into your backpack.
For sure. Yeah, and they also
you could the barbarian could probably throw them pretty far at that point. You know,
if they weighed 80 pounds before, which would be a skinny halfling, but if they weighed 80 pounds before, now they weigh 10 pounds. Like, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
It's so cool.
I've heard some creative people use that one quite fantastically. That's a great one, and it always is, especially on the new people to D&D who haven't seen that spell before, being able to do that and like their face when you do that, like I'm huge now. Like, what? Not actually.
I'm huge now. I'm huge now. Unless you're a freaking rune knight and you've already made yourself large and then you use enlarge on the Rune Knight, and now they're huge. And they take up a 4x4 space on the 3x3.
Exactly. Is it also
3
possible
3x3
to have the wizard cast polymorph onto one of the party members to make them into a giant gorilla, and then have the other person in the party cast enlarge?
Absolutely, it is. Yes. Yeah, you go from being a huge creature to a gargantuan.
Yes.
Taking up a 4x4 space as a giant ape.
This is D&D,
dude.
Y'all. That's a great one.
So good.
I love it.
Freaking King Kong in here.
I was going back and forth between enlarge and reduce, what you just had, and this one, and I picked this one because I pick this spell a lot, and I'm honestly thinking back to all the casters I've had this on all of their spell lists, and that's invisibility. Invisibility is just kind of almost a classic one. It's very much, it's great for infiltrating, throwing on the rogue to hide better.
It's just classic.
Except you can't really use it in combat per se unless, for that first round.
It's great for entering combat.
Great for entering combat. Casting it on the member of the party that can't or has disadvantage on stealth could aid in that. I've also used it to just have an incredible amount of fun. It's just also a mischievous spell. I've used it in games where as means of flirtation of hey, do you want to run around and just play tricks on everyone in camp?
Yep, I remember that.
Invisible.
I remember that. That was
it's great.
That was Jake hitting on his future wife before they were in a relationship through the game.
It's great. Through the game of D&D, everybody. It's amazing. No, for those of you that don't know, it is invisibility lasts an hour. It does take concentration. It scales with you can cast it on more people every level above. Second level, very nice when you start getting to those high levels to just have everyone turn invisible is very nice. But yeah, I use it almost all the time, and it's great, especially when you're a bard and you don't want to be hit first round of combat. You let the fighters and stuff go in as you are invisible. So,
yeah, for sure.
It's great.
That's good. That's a good pick. Invisibility is just the classic pick. What's really strange is I don't know that I've ever had invisibility on one of my casters. I don't know why.
That's
it's
interesting.
Never something that I think of as I should use this.
Now, I will say it doesn't necessarily come up often in one-shot type stuff. I've used it a lot of times in long-term.
Well, and I think the main reason is I've never really played a tricksy caster. I'm always the big boisterous caster.
You're the war mage.
Yeah. So, I'm never the guy who's I've also just never played a bard. So, that goes without saying.
Yes, that I know.
But even with warlocks and stuff, I've just never really thought of invisibility as a good pick, I don't know why.
Anyway, yep, that was my second pick.
Wonderful. Well, moving on to my third pick. Also another new spell. Also introduced in Strixhaven. My third pick is Wither and Bloom.
Yes, this is a great one. I'm so glad you picked this one.
Such a good and cool spell. I love spells that give you bang for your buck, and this spell gives you bang for your buck. It's really new, and it's in one of the newer books. I mean, not really. Strixhaven's not that new anymore, but for people who don't own all the books and things like that, you've probably never heard of it before. So, Wither and Bloom is an action to cast. Druid, sorcerer, wizard are people who can cast it, which is actually interesting. I thought clerics could. Maybe certain clerics can. But it states that you invoke both death and life in a 10-foot radius sphere, and each creature of your choice in that area has to make a con save or take 2d6 necrotic damage. It also has flavor. Any vegetation in that area withers along with this damage.
This actually just came up in our game, actually.
I figured it
was we were taking a short rest, and our wizard casted it, and he used like vegetation that was in the area to infuse and have him roll another hit die.
Yeah.
So I was just like, that's really cool that it lets you use vegetation. It's not just people.
Well, so
it's just life.
So that's the second part of the spell, which is, in addition, one creature of your choice in that area can spend and roll one of its unspent hit dice and regain the hit points equal to the roll plus your spellcasting modifier. So, really cool, because it's like, one, if you've got a dude on the ground who's bleeding out and he's surrounded by enemies, this is the spell to cast. Because one, they all take damage and don't want to be there anymore, and two, he can spend a hit die and get back up. And you know, one hit die is not that much healing, to be fair, but it's probably going to be better than like healing word, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, depending on the person you're casting it on, you know, if it's a barbarian, it could be
a lot of health. And it's also a hit die plus your spellcasting modifier. So at that point, probably plus 4 or 5, you know.
Fantastic. And I think that's great, especially for the earlier levels, and just really cool and thematic. I don't know why in my head I have... Do you remember the Avatar: The Last Airbender episode with the bloodbenders?
Yeah.
And she like pulls the water out of the vegetation. That's the image I have in my head, and it.
Yeah, because I've never thought of the flavor of like you're pulling the life from one thing and giving it to another. I've never really put that together in my head, which is interesting. I've always thought of it more as just like you are affecting the life forces in an area, and it's like you can either choose to hurt them or help them, and it's just kind of a general thing.
Yeah, no, I kind of like that interpretation. I don't know. I just maybe it was the way the Ross, our wizard, was describing it.
No, and that's a great way to add flavor to it.
That's kind of cool, you know, depending on the type of wizard you are. You really could just be more of the wizard that's like you are manipulating life in this area.
And to be fair, it is necromancy, so that would make sense that you're kind of pulling the life force from one thing and repurposing it. Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's up to interpretation. That's kind of the fun thing about magic and D&D. It kind of how you interpret it. Honorable mention for me, and then we will move to just so I can get a third one in. That's all this is. Honorable mention is web for me.
Oh, gross.
But web is the one for me because I like the combo that you can do because it does catch fire.
Yeah.
And I love this combo as a sorcerer to web a bunch of people and then set fire to the web.
Use a firebolt on it.
Yeah, but something that also surprised me, it's concentration up to an hour.
Yeah, it can last a long time.
You could just leave someone in your web.
Yep. I mean, they get saves every 6 seconds, but
true.
Or not saves,
true.
but they have to roll a athletics check, I think, to break free.
Yeah, something like that. It's a long one. I've had great. This was one of the first spells I remember taking. It was just it's gross, but it's also, I don't know, it's living the Spider-Man dreams.
It's another one of those classics that like I feel like people kind of underrate a little bit, but it's classic. Like, it's good. It's a great spell. It's got great utility.
And I'm realizing now that I guess I'm a classic fellow because most of mine were all kind of classic spells. The Vortex Warp was the only, I guess, new one.
Yeah, mine were all new spells.
Yeah. I think also I'm realizing second level is like the utility of all the spells.
There's like very few just straight up damage spells.
Second
level spells.
There's like Tasha's Whip is the only one that comes to my mind that does damage. And I think there's a couple others, but
Agonizar, Scorcher. Yeah, there's a few.
Oh yeah, Raven Feeblement I think is also on there.
But I have an honorable mention. I just want to say it real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I really like the spell called Wrist Pocket. Have you heard of this spell, Jake?
I have not. I did see it on the list, but I haven't used it and I haven't seen it used.
So it's from the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount.
Okay.
It's so cool because it's so like, that feels like a wizard. That's really cool. So essentially, it has only somatic components, so it's just a flick of a wrist. That's all you need to do.
Okay.
It's one action. You can also cast it as a ritual if you like. And it's concentration for up to an hour. So essentially, you have an item in your hand, and you flick your wrist, and it vanishes. The object, which only you can be holding and can weigh no more than 5 pounds, is transported to an extra-dimensional space, where it will remain. Until the spell ends, you can use your action to resummon the object to your free hand, and you can use your action to return it to the space. And an object still in the pocket plane when the spell ends appears in your space at your feet. So it's like, that's just straight up a wizard being like, ooh, I've got this wand. Gone.
It's gone.
And then 5 minutes later, it's back again. It's like Wrist Pocket. That's so cool. It's just like a little extra dimensional pocket that you get to just stuff something in for,
and
cool.
could be quite useful, if your group finds something very valuable and you need to get through.
Oh yeah,
checkpoint or something.
Yeah. As like, if you were like some kind of rogue or something with bits of wizard or something like that, like this is the perfect spell to just be like, yoink. What gem? I don't have a gem. What are you talking about?
I don't have a gem.
Do it. Search me. It's fine. Just don't tase me, because then I'll lose concentration. It'll do it. But yeah,
that would be amazing. You get punched,
and just like 6 things come tumbling out of.
You're like, space. Oh god, that's a great moment. Oh, that's great. Are you gonna take this spell as your wizard?
Probably not. He's not really. Okay. He's not the sticky fingered type.
He's the explosion type.
He's the I'm going to convince you to give that to me anyway type.
I'm going to get to the point where you want me to have this.
Yes. No. So speaking of Callan, the last we left Callan. Now I'm going to hop into my. Let's
hop right into this. Let's hop right into it.
The last time we left Callan and his friends, they were all underwater. Friends, and we were exploring a sunken ship that mysteriously went down in the river near Corvosa, because we thought it might have something to do with this sickness that's growing in the city. The reason we think this, I don't know if I explained this super well last time, because I was kind of trying to get to a point. The reason we think this is that while we were gone, taking Trinia to safety, there was a ship that started coming down the river. This ship was unmarked, flew no flag, and was undefinable except for one thing, which was that it was burning a yellow lamp on the top of the ship.
Okay.
Now, what this is known to mean in nautical terms is that the ship is quarantined, as in nobody on or off, and the people on it are sick.
Yes.
So this ship was coming into harbor, essentially. It was coming in the river towards the docks of Corvosa. And the guards basically gave it multiple chances to, like, drop anchor. We need to know who you are. You're not showing any signs to us. And it just kept going and going and going. And eventually they shot it out of the water. They sunk it.
Mm-hmm. As you do.
This happened, and then like 2 days later, we got back to town. It happened like the day we left, I think, or the day after we left. So it happened while we were out of town. But we get back to town, and it's like within 24 hours, people are getting sick.
Yeah.
Nobody else has really put that connection together yet. But we all think that it seems a little suspicious, so we went to go explore the ship.
Which is kind of, I guess, the benefit, the fact that you guys kind of got to town and then heard all this information, and then kind of were like, okay,
yeah,
you guys are kind of putting almost the pieces together because you kind of heard it all at once versus just like the news that is kind of coming out and just kind of getting fed to people, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the benefit of seeing it from an outside perspective, kind of.
Yeah.
To everyone else, it's like, what was that weird ship that got shot down? Oh, they just were a bunch of weirdos, and it seemed unmanned. That's the other thing. It seemed like unmanned. There was almost nobody on board when they shot it down.
Okay.
That they could see. So we go down into the dark, murky depths. We're exploring the ship. We get attacked by a shark. As we're fighting the shark back, a sea hag comes in to attack us.
And this is where we left off last time.
This is where we left off.
I love sea hags. They're, I think, one of my favorite hags in the game. I don't know why.
Sea hags are cool. Sea hags are very cool. Fight kicks off. We're fighting for our lives in the water. Not fun as a wizard who predominantly has fire spells. Just gonna say that.
Yeah. Just
not great. Fire bolts are just like, they just kind of disappear into the water.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, basically I'm doing like half damage the whole time.
Okay.
To everything around us, not because they're resistant, but because we're underwater.
Right.
Well,
maybe this could be a good little intro to Cal needs to be maybe a little bit more open with the spells that he's learning. Maybe he's needs to double down on one thing. I don't know.
I'll go into that here pretty soon.
I love it. I love it,
Jake.
I know Kurtis well, and he is a great role player with stuff like this.
we're starting this fight, and it's pretty rough because we're underwater. The only one of us who's doing anything decent really are a couple of the casters, because Tombstone, he's doing melee damage, which normally is okay, but he's making attacks with disadvantage because he doesn't have a swim speed.
Right. And
his weapons are all blunt, which do half damage in water. You need a piercing weapon to do full damage in water.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, it's a rough fight. So we're fighting this shark and this sea hag. We take the shark out, not too bad, but it gets some good hits. But the sea hag herself, she had this ability, which I still don't quite know exactly what it was. I don't have a lot of experience with sea hags, especially Pathfinder sea hags. She had this. It was this ability that was a lot like a banshee. Where it was like something would be caused to happen and you'd have to make a save, and if you don't save, you are unconscious.
Wow.
Just straight up.
Okay.
And Cal got hit with that, I believe, twice.
Oh, geez.
And went unconscious 2 times.
Now does it just knock you out, or does it bring you to 0 hit points in like a banshee?
I believe it brought me to 0.
Okay.
I believe it brought me to 0 both times.
Wow. Oof.
So I would get healed and be back up, and it'd be fine. Real rough fight. But eventually we take this sea hag down. We kind of recoup, figure out what's going on here, and we explore the captain's quarters, which is where we fought the sea hag. These quarters seem pretty disheveled. Obviously, the ship is sunk. And
no
bodies
that you've seen.
I'll get there, Jake. You keep jumping ahead of me.
Sorry. I don't mean to. I guess it's it could have floated away too.
The way the ship sank is really strange because it kind of came down, but then there was this big rock ridge at the bottom of the river where it came down. Mm-hmm. So when it landed there, the ship kind of like the captain's quarters like broke off and separated, and the rest of the ship like sank to the bottom.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're at the top of the ship, or well, back of the ship technically, looking through the captain's quarters, and inside what we find is a chest which actually looks to be sealed. It has a seal on it that has not been broken, which means whatever's inside is not wet. Mm-hmm. It is sealed shut. It's like a little footlocker that's got like a water seal on it. So we see that. That's interesting. There's got to be something important in there.
Interesting. Okay.
And we do find a body.
Okay, so there's one.
There's one at least. We find a body of a man in dark robes who has an unholy symbol of...
That face was amazing. If you need to, you can go ahead. The camera will, in editing, cut to me saying, "So there is one body. That's interesting. Did you do any investigation or anything like that on the body?"
Dip will never know. Yes. So the body, it had dark robes. Its face was kind of like all swollen and eaten up by like fish and stuff, so we couldn't really see.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
We couldn't really like see who they were or what they were or anything like that.
Okay.
But around their neck was an unholy symbol of a goddess.
Wow, an unholy
symbol of the goddess Urgathoa. Or technically, as it's supposed to be pronounced, Urgathoa. Not Urgathoa. Like O-O-R. Urgathoa. Anyway.
Interesting.
We all got in an argument about that in the game. But it's fine. An unholy symbol of Urgathoa, who is the goddess of disease, pestilence, those kinds of things.
Oh, no. Okay.
So we're like,
so there is a link. Oh, no.
That seems bad. And this body, I believe we could tell they had a large wound on the back of the skull, like a blunt wound. We weren't sure if it was from them, like, cracking their head when the ship sank, or maybe they were hit from behind by somebody else when the ship sank or something like that. We don't know for sure. But they had a large wound on their head, I believe. And then there's like a writing desk with a bunch of sopping papers and stuff like that. But we had the chest with stuff in it. So we kept that. And then we were like, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's go look at the rest of the ship. So we started going through the rest of the ship. We went to the main section. Like the main underneath of the ship, and it was just empty. No signs that there was even a crew on board or anything like that. Like there were the hanging like bunks and things like that, but no belongings, no bodies, no nothing.
Interesting.
And then we went a little further in, and we found where the like nest of the sea hag was. She had made like a little nest of like a bunch of the stuff in there, and there were like fish in there and stuff.
Now, what was the time frame between the ship going down and like when you guys kind of figured out stuff that's going on in the plague? Has it been like a few weeks? Has it been a few days?
No. So far as I remember, when we got back, the ship went down like the day before. We did a couple things for a few more days, and so it's been like less than a week as far as I understand.
Gotcha. Okay, so that sea hag moved in pretty dang quick then.
Yeah. Cool new house.
Okay.
So we left that area. Wasn't much to find. It was just like the sea hag's little nest and stuff. Not much there. So we moved up towards the front of the ship, which was on the other side that had like cracked and had fallen over on the other side of the rock. So we come up and over the rock, and we're like, ooh, what's down there? Let's go in there. And we start swimming down, and immediately out of the darkness of the front of the ship comes swimming all of these huge eels, like 8-foot long eels.
Oh my god.
Huge eels, like 6 of them or something like. No, it was like 4 of them, something like that.
Oh my god.
And we're like,
Ugh.
oh crap, great, we're gonna have to fight these. So we started fighting the eels. That was tough, just because we were all kind of already messed up.
Yeah. That would be so spooky too. I'm just putting myself in that situation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is,
Ugh.
I knew there were eels here because I had sent my familiar down before.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and an eel ate my familiar before. So I knew there were eels. I just didn't know there were like 6 of them. I thought it was like
this is
maybe
Cal's
1.
revenge story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cal's revenge story now.
So we fight the eels. We kill all the eels. Tombstone's like, them's good eats, and grabs 2 of them and ties them around his waist like a sash. No, he doesn't. He doesn't tie them around his waist, but he grabs 2 of them.
Yeah.
And he's like, that sounds good.
He's very barbarian. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you eat what you kill, guys. Come on.
Come on.
We search the front of the ship. From my memory, we don't find much there either.
Okay.
I think the only real major thing we found was that sealed footlocker. So we start heading up to the top. Unfortunately, we're all super weak, and we're trying to swim and also drag this footlocker with us, and we're all failing miserably.
Even the barbarian.
Well, no, he's not helping because he's got his eels. He's got to get them up. So he's swimming up with his eels.
Okay.
So
okay,
he's like,
bud.
you guys, he's like, it's one little footlocker. You guys are fine.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, what I neglected to mention was that when we killed the sea hag was when we leveled up. That was when we leveled up to level 5.
Great. Okay. Awesome.
So
that's a great moment to level up.
Cal used one of his second level spells and casted Alter Self on himself. In which case he gave himself an aquatic form, which Alter Self, it has like 2 things. It lets you like give yourself weird stuff, like you can have an aquatic form or a beast form. The aquatic form lets you breathe underwater and have a swimming speed. The beast form gives you like claws and teeth so you can attack with them. Or you can also use it to alter your body and shape in any way, but like physically alter it. It's not.
That's cool. I guess I never really looked into this spell.
Yeah, it's not disguise self where it's an illusion. You actually can physically change things about yourself. And again, it only lasts for like an hour. But
It's almost like a mini what's the druid thing? Beast shape?
a little bit. But you have to stay humanoid. Yeah, so he uses Alter Self, and basically I kind of said it that it like little gills split on his neck. And he gets like webbed hands and feet, kind of like Harry Potter when he eats the gillyweed. Yeah,
I was thinking shape of water, but that's a full aquatic creature. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So he gets all that, and now he has a swimming speed, so it's much easier. So now he just grabs the chest and swims up. So we get to the top, we pull the chest out. Keep in mind that Kit has been up there alone this whole time. Because we did not have enough potions of water breathing to go around for all 5 of us.
And did she level up?
Yeah, she leveled up. She's just been sitting up there hanging out. She did nothing except hang out with my weasel familiar, and she went from level 4 to level 5.
It's like you could think of it like in a way of like she was studying or something and unlocked, like was puzzling.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea that the critter said something and spilled something onto her book, her spell book, and was like, oh, and like just changed an algorithm because of an accident. I love that.
Absolutely. So we get back up to the top. She's like, oh my God, you guys were down there for forever. Everything okay? And we're like, yeah, we're fine. Just a little beat up. And so
I felt some XP hit me.
We get the chest out, and we open it up, and I think there's like some gold and some rewards in there. But the major thing we find is essentially an Urgathoa Bible.
Oh,
it's like prayers for like Urgathoa and like verses for Urgathoa. So
that's
we look
spooky.
through it.
A goddess of disease, and there's prayers. What would those? Those would just be curses. I feel like.
It's essentially just like curses and like wishing disease on yourself and those around you and things like that.
Lovely.
Urgathoa, as far as I know, is actually also the goddess of the undead. So it's like disease, pestilence, undeath.
Okay, interesting.
So like necromancers are big fans of Urgathoa as well.
Okay.
Now, I do have to double check something because at this point we start looking through the book and we start seeing some really strange things in the book. We see that there are portions where it's almost like a personal journal kind of like prayer book kind of thing, where it's like you put in your own thoughts and things in the book. And we see that this person... Yeah, kind of. We see that this person who was in the boat was like writing things and like writing prayers and things to Urgathoa and stuff, except we start seeing that they start scratching out the name Urgathoa and start putting the name of somebody else there instead.
Okay.
And the name of this other person is... I totally forgot something else too. I just looked at my notes. I'm so sorry. So before we came to the ship, we explored a little bit about it and asked around about it and found out that the ship itself was called, it was originally a merchant vessel. From Nidal, which is a different continent. And it was called the Direption.
The Direction?
Direption. Direption.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
And that it has been to Korvosa before, which is why they had it in their records.
Interesting.
But the last time it was Korvosa was a long time ago, and the ship itself was reported as lost 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. Now, this is getting so creepy. I love this.
And it was reported as lost by its original owner named Gargori Wenston. He passed away 1 year ago. So 2 years after the ship was declared lost, he passed away. So we find this symbol of Urgathoa on the ship, the goddess of disease and undeath. We bring both the corpse of the man and the chest containing his little devotional in it. So we get to the docks. We start flipping through the book, and our cleric casts Speak with Dead on him.
Oh, so the cleric's got Speak with Dead. Oh, interesting. Yes.
So, from this, we learn that the corpse said something about it was speaking in a weird language that none of us understood, but we heard a name, and that name was Andaeson.
Andaeson. Okay.
And we see that in the book, they hadn't scribbled out and added a name. They were scribbling out the name of Urgathoa and were putting in priestess instead, or high priestess in the book.
Wow, that's weird.
So, with some investigating, we find that Andaeson, we went to, I think Cal and Elora went to her temple where there's like a small library. And we started looking through some books about the cult of Urgathoa and things like that. And we find that there is a high priestess of Urgathoa named Andaeson.
In the city or just in general?
Not that was ever in the city that we know of, but there is a high priestess of Urgathoa named Andaeson.
Okay.
she is known for because she basically seeded the bubonic plague in a town in what was the name of that place? In a town in Nidal.
Okay. Oh, okay. Where the ship
was from originally.
Oh, geez.
She seeded the bubonic plague in this town in Nidal. But then escaped on a ship.
Okay.
So Cal has put together in his mind that, okay, and the reason I'm reading this so weird is because I wrote my notes in first person. So this is all Cal going like, we found this.
Yeah, no,
this
that
is
makes
what
sense.
I think about it. So at this point, Cal is thinking, okay, great. We know exactly what happened. This priestess of Urgathoa started a plague somewhere else, was like, okay, that worked pretty well, but I can perfect this a little better. Got on a ship with her priest, started perfecting that disease, reached this city, and let it out here. But in order to like prevent any danger or anything, she basically was like, you're going to go down with the ship. I'm going to escape so that nobody knows what happened here. Ship goes down. Dude dies. She escaped. She's got to be somewhere in the city.
Yeah.
That's what Cal is thinking.
Okay. Okay. And so is it like one of those things, like if you find her, you could potentially end the plague here type of thing?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking right now. But at this point, we're like, okay, we got to bring this information to somebody in power. We got to find out if there's a cult of Urgathoa in the city, because if there is, that's where she'd be, all that kind of stuff. So we're starting to make these plans. Cal is thinking, oh, okay, cool. She probably came and is like working with the queen now to cull the city, because Cal's kind of playing the queen for everything right now.
I mean, if you think about it from a ruler's perspective of like, this would potentially, like if she were to suddenly figure out how to save everybody from this would rally the city to stop fighting her. I mean, that's not necessarily a crazy leap in logic.
Because of the way disease works, all of the poor people who hate you are going to die.
Yeah.
That's how disease works.
Yeah.
So, win-win. I get to sit in my castle and watch all the people that hate me die and then clean up, and now everything's good.
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah, she seems, I mean, if that theory is true, OMG. Wow.
Kurtis does not necessarily think that Andaesin and the Queen are in cahoots. He thinks they're separate things. Cal definitely thinks the Queen is working with Andaesin and sees this as an opportunity.
Okay, lovely.
Anyway, it's at this point we get back to the room. We're discussing all of this, deciding where to go with this information, all those kinds of things, and we all go, okay, we're probably gonna meet with this with Cressida, who is the guard person.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet with Cressida.
Main contact in the
tell
guard,
her about.
Yeah.
We're not technically like working with the guard anymore, but she's the most trustworthy person we know who could do something about this, and maybe help us with some information about an Urgathoa plot. So we decide that's what we're gonna do. We basically invite her to come have dinner with us because we don't want to go meet her near the castle. We want her to come out and away.
That makes
sense.
Talk
to us.
That's what we've been trying to get. I mean, we joked about it a couple times ago. It's like, get her out from people. Hopefully she can. I know she's crazy busy, but.
So 2 days from now, we're going to have dinner with her, all that kind of stuff. She's planning to come see us. We go to bed that night. Everything's great. Cal remembers he's still got a dose of shiver. And he's like, well, things are going kind of crazy in town. We just finally got our win. Everything's going good. Everything's great.
Buddy.
And last time I took it, everything was great. So I might as well do it again. So he goes up to the roof again. Except this time Alora's up there, just meditating. getting ready to kind of sleep and stuff. And he's like, hey, how's it going? No big deal. I'm just going to sleep up here. It's a little stuffy in the room. And the sound of our neighbors coughing is kind of unsettling me. So I'm just going to sleep up here.
Okay.
So while she's over there with her eyes closed, he kind of goes over here and takes a little swig.
Jesus.
And he passes out up there too and has, great dreams. He dreams, every time I take it, Dip tells me what I dream.
That's amazing.
And this time he dreams that just straight out of Star Wars, he dreams that he's become so powerful that he uses his telekinesis to lift the entire ship out of the water and drop it onto dry land. And I was like, that's a cool dream. He wakes up the next day feeling great. No real bad side effects. He's got another mild tremor in his hand. As well as what he does not notice at first, a very bloodshot eye.
Okay.
So, no major like health side effects, just a little bit of a red eye. No
just
big deal.
Physical ones.
Yeah. And Alora's like, do you have pink eye? And so she uses lesser because we're worried that they're all worried that he's.
Oh yeah, like
they're all worried he's getting sick.
I mean that makes sense. Yeah,
so,
like, oh God, there's a plague going on.
So she uses lesser restoration on him first thing in the morning, and he's like, well, now I feel even better. This is great. And it goes away a little bit, but still kind of stays.
It's like, I got a cute girl casting spells on me. This is amazing.
So we're all like, cool, what are we going to do now? And we get a knock on the door. And we're like, oh, that must be Tombstone. He went away somewhere else. He's probably coming in. And Dip did this really cool in the game. He was like, Tombstone, so you're heading back? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. Everybody at the place, you hear a knock at the door. And we're like, okay. I go open the door, expecting it to be Tombstone. And he's like, you see a small girl who's like 5 foot tall, maybe. She looks kind of mousy. She's got a bit of a nervous look about her. She's kind of like, hello, talking to you. And you guys all end up talking to her. So we end up talking to this girl. We find out that there's some bad things happening in the city again. Apparently, there is a population of were-rats that live in the sewers. And it's pretty well known to people. However, what has happened is some of the not so great off folk have started blaming the were-rats for spreading disease. And that they're the cause of why it's spreading, or maybe even the cause entirely of it. So they dragged a were-rat out and basically beat them up and were like, it's your fault, you did this, and basically declared war on the were-rats. Now, as a people here, they are typically like, we avoid everyone at all costs. We don't come out of the sewers. Right. We don't do anything.
Because were-rats, I mean, because they're like werewolves. They're like people that can turn into rats type of thing, right? Okay.
And if they bite you, you become a were-rat possibly.
Right.
So it's lycanthropy, but rats, not wolves.
Okay.
But they stay really far away from people. They don't like to be near people. They like to keep to themselves. They just stay in the sewers. But there is one who has become very zealous after all of this has happened, and he has started basically he gathered together a bunch of other followers who hate humans.
Oh no.
And is about ready to burst out of the sewers and start a war in the poorest part of town against the humans and just start killing people because they've killed his people. So she's like, hey, I don't want that to happen. Most of the other people don't want that to happen. You never have to know any of this existed. You know, like, you'll never see me again. I just know you guys like to help. And I thought maybe you'd want to help. If not, I get it, but it's going to be real bad. And if you do help, I can promise that we'll do our best to try and kind of, you know, there's a lot of dead bodies in the streets. Maybe we can help clear them out, kind of a thing.
Right.
And we were like, okay, so we're going to do this, right? Like, we have to help. So that's our plan. We go, okay, we're going to do this. We've got time. We'll do this tonight. We'll have dinner with Cressida tomorrow night. It'll be great. We've got a free day. No big deal. So we agree, and we start heading towards the direction where she says the nearest sewer entrance to this man is. His name is Gribbers? I don't know.
Gribbers.
That was a really silly name, though. But anyway, we'll get to that next time. I'm sure I'll remember it by the next time, but that's where I'm going to leave it for now.
That's a great point. I'm just going to throw out there that my camera, the card is full, so we're just going to stay on Kurtis's face from here on till the thank you thank you all so much for watching / listening. We really appreciate you being here. Kurtis, that was a fantastic story.
Thank you.
I can't wait to this is crazy. There's disease,
dude,
crazy goddess, were-rats.
It's getting
Holy
crazy.
Cow.
It's getting crazy. It's really cool. At this point, it's like, were-rats? Whoa, wait. This is not the direction we thought we were going to be going right now.
Wow.
But I guess, okay, let's go do it. And I love it because it's like a play on the like plague rat feel, it's like, except this time the rats are the victims of the plague. It's great. It's really cool. I should say something she asked us was like, all the people there, they're just following him because he's big and mean. She's like, if you can, try not to kill anybody except him.
Gotcha.
So we're like, okay, we'll do our best. So.
This is interesting, and it's kind of fun to see you guys, like, your name has now spread throughout the city. Like, you guys have kind of known that, but it's been like, what, a month of you guys kind of doing
a little
these
over.
things in your names?
Almost 2 months now, I think.
A little over a month now? Yeah, so that's kind of, you guys have, because you guys have had some great downtime and meeting people and stuff. So
that's the thing I keep having to remember is that we've had like weeks worth of downtime from time to time, so it's been longer than it seems like.
That's cool.
But yeah, so very excited. Next time we'll catch up with Jake and where he's at with his story in the middle of a field of thorns and summer pipers, sun pipers,
the Dawn
Pipers. I knew it was something to do with the sun. We'll catch up with the Dawn Pipers, and we'll hear all about somebody getting teleported into thorns, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll see where that goes next time.
Lots of crazy folklore. It's great.
But in the meantime, the secret question for this episode, I'm telling you, it's a thing now. The secret comment for this episode is... Hag.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Hag.
That's a good one.
Hag.
Not bad. Hag. H-A-G. Hag. Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. We are the Backyard Tabletop. My name has been Jake.
My name's been Kurtis.
And we will see you next time on the Backyard Tabletop.
Goodbye. I just remembered that they can only see me right now.
We've been on you for like the past 5 minutes, I think.
You're welcome.
It's great. Trust me, you're welcome.